Hey, Bruce, welcome home.
Thanks, Steve.
Just, with 2 nights sleep and looking back on it and some of the areas where you were not able to succeed and getting inside, is that something you can remedy with what you have in the roster, or do you think you still have to, search out a little more size to compete against a defense like that?
Well, the question becomes, I thought in game 5, we had a quicker lineup. You lose some of the bigger bodies, like say Wagner, and Crowley's, quick too, but Ritchie and in goes Kuhlman, Bjork, Studs, who had all played for us in different parts of the playoffs and obviously regular season. And you see that, you can play behind them as well and use your outside speed, and as long as you're willing to cut into the net. We saw that a few times with Kuhlman, Bjork. I think Studs is still learning that part of the game a little bit, so we're going to reserve judgment on him. But and you're able to create some offense, but you don't finish. So, then you go to the other way. Okay, if the bigger bodies are not as quick, are not going to go around, and they more or less have to go through them. So there's two schools of thought. You'd like to have a mix of both. The bigger bodies probably are more impactful when you're involved in getting shots through from the point. So it's a little more off ozone play, creating turnovers off forecheck. And then the speed is more maybe off the rush. So do we have enough? I feel we do, but we're going to have to learn to finish better. And some of that is, we're going to have to do a better job at the ozone blue line on working, getting our shots through. I watched Philly last night, 2 deflection goals. Tampa's done it to us. So that's an area of our game that has to improve with what we have now, our ability to score off redirects, rebounds. And then obviously, we have to look at our personnel and decide is that a strength of their game, or is there better out there? So, but those are discussions we'll have. But to answer your question, yeah, I think we're definitely capable of more. I'm not going to, pass the buck and say we didn't have the right people. But we're going to have to seriously look at how we're going to create that offense and build a skill set into our, our D to find those shooting lanes better and get our forwards. I don't think you can teach hand-eye coordination, but what spots to go to better to find those deflections. And then it comes down to them, their will to get there, and then the execution of getting pucks there. So I think it's in the room, and we're just going to have to do a better job of reinforcing what we need to do to get those goals.
Thank you, Steve. We'll go next to Joe Haggerty. You're next to me, Joe. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hey, Butchie. When you lose a couple of times to Tampa in 5 games over the span of 3 years in the playoffs, I mean, how much of that do you feel like is, it's a tough matchup? How much of that do you feel like there are common threads in both those series? Things that need to be adjusted or addressed, and does it become difficult a little bit mentally when there's a team in your division that's kind of had your number in the playoffs a couple of times here that most years you're going to have to get through them to get to where you want to go?
Well, there's a bit of that for sure. I mean, I think we feel we're a really good team too, Hags, and Tampa just happens to be right beside us in our division. I mean, if you look over the past 3 years and regular season teams that had the most success, I'm sure we're each in the top, whatever it is, top 3. So, that's a bit of tough luck being right beside them in the division, but that's a hand we're dealt. I'm sure Toronto doesn't feel that good being in our division. Florida, these teams that have to go through 2, we feel we have to go through 1. So do we have to do things better? Yes. Obviously they've had our number, so that's a fact. We can't hide that. So do you build your team to beat that team, or do you build your team, to beat everyone in the league and balance your team? And those are discussions we'll have, but we have to have that in mind, that to get to where we want to go, we probably have to go through Tampa. So, and I see five game. I think this year's 5-game loss, we're farther ahead than we were 2 years ago. I truly believe that. We were more competitive, except for the 7-1 game. I think we had some personnel that weren't functioning at 100%. We had some personnel not in the lineup that could have helped us. Would have been enough to win the series. I mean, that's anybody's guess. But right now, I do feel we're very competitive with Tampa. They've had the better hand, so the facts don't dictate that, but that's how I feel.
Thanks, Joe. We'll go next to Mike Loftus. Go ahead, Mike. You can unmute yourself.
Hi, Bruce.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, you, from maybe even after game 2, but the last few games of that series, you really kind of called on, I think you called them like the second layer, not just scorers, but the younger guys, the guys who are going to be the core, to pick things up. And I'm wondering on, how you thought they did. And, if you don't think they did that well, I mean, do you have some questions about that group?
Well, that group, if I guess what I was getting at is you've got a core group that's had a decade of a lot of success. Okay. Every organization may measure success differently. At the end of the day, do you have a chance to win the Stanley Cup is a fairly good barometer. And the Bruins did once. There were 2 other times fell a game or 2 short. Pretty much a perennial playoff team. So once you're in, you do have a chance. So that part of it was built on the backs of a core group of players and a good secondary cast, right? So, but that core group that is here now grew into what they are, because of their effort, the culture created, and we want that continuation to start at some point for the second layer. And I thought it did last year, obviously. Jake had a really good playoff his first year against Toronto is a big reason why we advanced. Corrali scored some big goals, and now McAvoy comes in. So you're leaning on those guys to try to pull harder on the rope is what we're going after, Mike. It's as simple as that, is that we got a lot of trust and faith in our core guys are still carrying us, but they need, it's a full 20 guys, and they need those other guys to step up some nights. And I think when I had challenged them, it was on our back-to-back. So clearly back-to-backs, you're relying on young legs, you're relying on discipline, you're relying on, smart play away from the puck to keep yourself in the game till you find your legs, et cetera, different things. And they go through it too. They had the same schedule, but that's where we challenge them to, be the leaders in that particular game 3. And I think going forward, they do have to take more, be a little more accountable to the group if this team is going to have another decade like we just had. And I guess that's really getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but the messaging is that, we're relying on you guys now. You've watched the Bergerons, the Charas, the Marshis, the Krejcis, all those guys do it. So now it's your turn to, to take control a little bit. And at times I thought they did, and other times, we want more out of them. And so it's a bit of a challenge mentally as well as, on ice, is to be more leadership oriented than maybe just following some nights.
Thanks, Mike. We'll go next to Mick Colagio. Go ahead, Mick. You can just unmute yourself.
Thank you. Butch, you've been incredibly willing to step back and from inside the jungle and see the game and the larger snapshots that people on the 9th floor look at it, whether they're managers or scouts or whatever. And I guess my question is I saw a maturation of the younger group of this team. It got harder as the season drew on and you got to March. And it looked to me like you guys were poised and ready to really take a run at this thing. Even the resourceful wins against Carolina, it never seemed like you were whipping that back up or able to in such a short stretch. And I'm wondering how you looked at that aspect of your club and how it came along through the 6-month course of the season, and then what was possible or what didn't happen for you guys to get that kind of 5-on-5 edge that was really missing as you went along here.
Well, it's 2 seasons the way I look at it. It wasn't a continuation. It just wasn't. You're off 4 months. Not a lot of control on what's going on with the players in terms of how they're preparing if and when there was going to be a restart. So that part of it is everything stopped in March, and a team like us that I thought was building, we were better educated as a staff, as players, what it takes to win in the playoffs, how the regular season goes, and as you want to sort of build your game up so that when April comes, you've checked all the boxes, so to speak, that you can. take away the intangibles. There can be injuries. We had a couple of trade deadline acquisitions we were trying to work in, just like we did the year before, who took a little bit of time to get acclimated and really helped us in the playoffs. So we'll never know the answer to that because those players didn't get the opportunity. And then now you come back and you're running a training camp, and it's up to there was a negotiated deal. The players came back at a certain date, training camp. Some came back earlier, some later. There was a little bit of uncertainty, I'm sure, with, what was going on with the players as they sorted out their deal. And we missed some players in training camp, and there's no doubt in hindsight that set them back. I mean, you take a month off when everyone else is skating and then get right into it. We played an exhibition game, 3 games. There's some catching up to do. And
it was longer from June 12th than it was from June 12th to October in Dallas. It was longer. And that gap just seems crazy. And I guess my follow to that is just when you look at what you've seen, what teams are doing, and every team has big off-season decisions, but does it feel crazy from behind the bench in this experience you just had to use this as a referendum on decisions about players and this and that? It just seems like such a crapshoot.
It's a results-oriented business. What have you done for me lately? So there's a little bit of that. You overanalyze. Some years you have a very, very average stretch of 82 games, make it in, have a great playoff, and all of a sudden, everything's fixed. And you go into the next year and you realize that maybe the bigger sample size was more accurate. So we don't want to overanalyze what happened in this short period of time, but we do have to acknowledge, Mick, that it is Tampa who did it to us 2 years ago, and they are an elite team in the league. And if we expect to win a Stanley Cup, you're probably going through them. So we do have to analyze what happened against Tampa. I thought last year we handled the playoffs well. We played the schedule in front of us. We lost in a game 7 against a team that was a different makeup than us. I still feel when you go that far, if you overanalyze one game, you could get yourself in trouble. We tried to build on what we need to do better. And again, not to get off, but, we rolled into the regular season with, what was our checklist of things to do, and handled a lot of the things that, coming off a long year, we needed to put ourselves in this position again. And then the pause. So now you go back to, okay, well, how are we going to get it back? As you said, we never seem to get rolling. I don't disagree. I thought against Carolina, it started coming into place. You started to see Bruins hockey, and then you get against Tampa, and it's like, bigger team, harder D to get through. So do you make the changes early to maybe with the depth you have? Or do you wait to see where it goes and then make the changes? Is it too late? So there's a lot of decisions a coach has to make. And clearly, we lost in 5. So, we're all going to get evaluated in that regard. So I needed to do better with our lineup, attack a different way against that team, obviously. We certainly didn't want to change our game a lot because we are a good team, but we didn't do enough to win. And to finish plays, to score, and at the end, defensively. The last 2 goals, game 5 is a good example. They scored 2 deflection goals. Heart, soul of our team is our team defense, net front coverage. They exposed us on that. So not only is it the scoring part, it's the part of our bread and butter game that broke down as well. So is that them just being better, or do we have to, look at different players? So change systems. Trust me, I've thought about that the last few days. I think we do have to be quicker in D-zone coverage to eliminate some of these teams that use their points a lot. It's something we discussed, but it's a quick adjustment. So we're gonna have to build it into a full 82 game schedule next year. So I don't know if I've answered your question exactly, Mick, but I do believe that we do have to take what was right in front of us. The facts, as I said earlier, that Tampa was better than us, and then still not forget about the 70 games we played to be arguably the best team in the National Hockey League. You can't just throw that out the window.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We'll go next to Dan Roach. Before Dan, you go, it looks like we got about 4 or 5 more hands up, so we'll round out today's media availability with that. So Dan, go on ahead.
Hey, Bruce.
Hi, Dan.
Have you thrown batting practice yet?
I did yesterday afternoon. My kid smoked it.
Nice.
Yeah, I think David Ortiz was in the neighborhood or something while I was gone because he's a lefty and he was hitting bombs to right field. So good for him.
Send him to Fenway, would you? Just to kind of follow up what you're talking about, a lot of the talk after the loss was, David Krejci was certainly emotional about the windows closing, what have you, and Bergie as well. Do you feel, it seems like there's a national cry now that to break up the core of the Bruins, that veteran group. Do you feel like this group still has plenty in it based on what you've done the last several years?
I do. I just, the reality is, as every team gets a year older, there's an effect on the team. And for us, I think every summer, Donnie would tell you, when we sit down, go over our team, we're always trying to get bigger, faster, stronger, better. It's just the way it is. And does that mean moving out younger guys, older guys, middle of the road guys? Well, there's always that discussion. So we'll have that again. And I'm not trying to evade your question. A couple of the older guys, a couple of the core guys are free agents. So, there's decisions to be made by the player and by management. So it's not, it's not only on management. How do you supplement a core that's got another year on them? And I think we've done some good with that over the years. Obviously, to stay very competitive, be one of the elite teams in the league, we're going to have to supplement more. We're going to have to look at, are there the right pieces around them? Are we coaching them the right way? We need to change our systems now because, of the way we've lost out in the playoffs. So those are all realistic questions. I mean, there's always going to be an immediate cry at the end when you lose about, what happened. And we just have to be careful that, let's sit back for a bit and see, okay, is the reason, do we need to get younger? Have some of these guys aged out? Do we put them in the right position to succeed? Is there a lot more to give? I think there is. Personally, we'll have those discussions. And some of it might be, well, what if Tampa rolls through everybody and just wins? Are we second best then? And are we being too critical of ourselves? Or what if Tampa struggles against a certain type of team? And then we can say, well, you know what? That's where we got to be better. So there's a little bit of that goes on at every level in sports. So we want to make sure we do not rush to judgment, but, get the right pieces in place with what you're able to do. Like Donnie has a salary cap to abide by. We've got prospects in Providence that we think are close. So we have to look at that and then, make the best projection. So there's a lot of that goes on. It's not that easy just to say, okay, we're just going to bring in 3 big bodies that can all fly around the ice. I mean, you have to have them in your system. You probably have to give up pieces if you don't, or you have to groom them to be that. So, I mean, those are the things that, we're going to sit down and plan and make. Like I said, I think what we've done well with this organization is if we've had to retool, we have, and do it on the fly with your core. And we're not afraid of that if that's what we need to do. But those are discussions I think we'll have, once the sort of dust settles here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan. We'll next to Jimmy Murphy. Go ahead, Jimmy. You can unmute yourself.
Hey, Coach, how are you?
Good, Jimmy.
Totally agree. You got to sit back a bit and kind of breathe and reevaluate. But given the unique circumstances that you're now facing with an off season that's going to be very rushed, how much of that will start faster than usual?
Well, I don't know, because I don't know the parameters. When you say rushed, I'm thinking I don't even know when we're going to play. So, so for me, it's like, it seems like it's the opposite. It's like we're going to be sitting around and are doing nothing when we all want to probably get back to work. And, sort of when you lose, you want to fix things. At least I do quickly. Let's get back at it. Let's go back to work. I mean, the days are getting shorter. Evenings are getting cooler. That's usually hockey time, right? It's September. So it's an odd feeling right now that we're not going to work. But along your point, I assume the league's going to come up with some dates here quickly on free agency. They've identified the draft. The draft is, usually as a coach, it's for years down the road, but you are making deals at the draft. So yes, free agency, who's available. There's always those discussions. And then, hey, how do our young guys fit in against these free agencies with what we have available to us with the cap? So that part may be rushed. But I think still, Jimmy, if you go far enough in the playoffs, the draft comes up quickly. July comes up quickly. If you're losing out in late May, early June, middle of May, there is a timeline too. So I don't think that'll be a whole lot different, to be honest. We'll get back at it and sort of sort out where we need to be better. I think the Bruins have always done that. Donnie's always on top of that. Just got to make the right calls and change what you need to change. I think every year we've tried to do that, adjust a little bit. And I've seen some things already where we need to get better. I've talked about D-zone. we had one of the best defensive teams in the league this year, yet it wasn't good enough against Tampa. So we got to fix some of it. Without overthinking it. Offensively, we've said 5-on-5. How do we generate more offense? We need to get our D involved more. Does that sacrifice defense? We have to have an honest conversation about that. And that's where I think we are with our team. I think our special teams are solid. I think we got good pieces in place, young and old. We're gonna have to tweak a few things.
And just follow up quickly, at curiosity, that you can make trades right now, right? Is that correct?
You can. I saw Jake Allen got traded today, so
right.
That's Donnie's area, Jim. You know that. I can't go. I'm not. My opinion is asked on certain deals, specifically guys in the room. How does it affect us if we lose guys? But that's Donnie's area, pro scout. So that's probably his media day to see if there's something in the hopper for him. Not again. I'm just telling you, my role.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jimmy. We'll round out today's avail with Fluto, followed by Connor Ryan and Kevin DuPont. Fluto, you can kick us off. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, Bruce. When you talk about offensive or better creation from the blue line, has that part of the game changed even in your short time where you've seen, like I remember low to high was never really part of your thinking, that you want to take the puck out of the corner, go right back at the net. Has it just changed where it's just harder to create offense without getting stuff involved from the blue line?
Yep. It's when I first took over, I thought there was too much low to high. It was automatic. I felt we were underutilizing the skill of our forward group. We changed some of those forwards that could attack, beat some people one-on-one, get more looks from the slot, use the back of the net. I think we built that into our game. And I think where that changes, Fluto, is in playoff hockey. I think wingers are much more dialed in defensively, where they're going to collapse in the slot, be aware of coverages. I think they're much more willing to block shots. The whole group is. So it's a skill to get a puck through to the net. And that's where we've got to be next year better. And we have to involve more of that. So I guess when I first took over, I thought we need to attack more, have that attack oriented. I thought it worked well for us. Now we got to find a balance. It's not like this was a revelation yesterday. It has been something we've been building in. And then you got to have the skill set to get a shot through. I think it's one of the most underrated skill sets in the National Hockey League is a defenseman's ability to walk the blue line laterally and find a stick, get a puck through in time, whether that's a half slap or a wrister, if you have time for the slap shot, to create offense. Obviously joining the rush. When D joined the rush and it breaks down, there's probably something coming back at you. We saw that with Carolina. They do it well. Their D are involved. But they pay the price at the other end. If you're good defensively and you transition against that and counter it, they pay the price at the other end. So, you have to be careful to balance that. But yes, the offensive zone part, we're going to look long and hard in that. Discussions on job responsibilities. I think every year you change a little bit of it. I started out coaching the D, so it was a big priority of mine to make sure that was part of their game. Kevin came in. He took a little more of that responsibility. That's something we got to look at. That's something I got to, it's on me to make sure I get more involved in that next year. I enjoy doing it, but then you may have to pass on another area of responsibility because some of that work's done after practice with a certain group. So those are the things we're going to discuss. It cost us, I think, in this playoff series. So it's out there. We need to be better at it. Does that mean we change the personnel on the blue line that are able to better do that? If we do, does it mean we lose something in our own end? Because some of the times when you do that, your group's smaller. So those are all questions as it even goes to mix, I think, before that we have to look at. Do we want to sacrifice defense to gain a little more offense, and how much? And I think that's where we're at right now with how we can be better 5-on-5.
We'll go next to Connor Ryan. Go ahead, Connor.
Hey, Bruce. When you look at the natural progression of a few of these players, is there a specific area that you feel a guy like McAvoy made some strides in this season? And even though he's already established himself as kind of a top pairing option, do you feel as though he's even kind of come close to reaching kind of his ceiling with this team?
No, he's got more. I think he's 22. I mean, I don't think anybody hits their ceiling at 22, Connor, to be honest with you. There's a lot of growth left in his game, a lot more experience that he can draw on. Will his skill set change a ton over the next 4 or 5 years? He's probably going to be, he's an elite skater. So I assume that, that will, probably stay the same more or less over the next several years. His puck skills will continue to grow, his confidence at the blue line. If he's thrust into more of a power play role, does that make him a better offensive player because he's getting more touches? Does it bleed into 5-on-5? So those are the questions, we have to ask. He's also our number one pair shutdown guy. So can he handle all of that? Is he ready for, PK, PP, 5-on-5, drive, be our, number one D? Those are some things that the minutes we gave him was probably a big ask to do all those things at 22 years old. I just think he's a little bit of ways away from having all of those things. I think he's capable of it, absolutely. At what age? Hey, I hope it's 23, but sometimes these D that they really kick in around 26, 27 when they can handle it all. And part of that, I think, Connor, is because they read the game, when to go, when to impact the game, when not to, when to make the simple play. I think when you're young, you've got all kinds of energy and you want to make a difference every shift. I think that's where the difference between the elite defensemen that do it every night is they understand what nights they need to step up or what shifts or what periods, what times in the game. And we're seeing a lot of that with Charlie, but in fairness, I think there's some growth there on when to impact the game and when to sort of just do your job some nights and when other guys are going. So obviously I think the world of Charlie, he's an elite defenseman and who's only going to get better.
We'll go next to Kevin Dupont, and then we'll finish it up with Emily Benjamin. Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, I've got a nuts and bolts question, but first, Bruce, if you could just kind of reflect on, I've been on 2 and 3 week road trips where I come home and it's like weird to have my life back, but I haven't had testing every day and the bubble. So is there sort of a first question? Is first kind of a sensory overload here or any of that feeling?
Not yet. Unpacked a lot, Kevin. Just hung around the house. Happy to be around Julie and the kids. Put something on a grill on the barbecue. Something, that we were in a cafeteria style restaurants every night. So it's kind of, just basics, to be honest with you. I think once we get outside here in the next week and, it'll hit home that a little more. For me, I'm an adaptable guy. I think, I would have been happily spent another month in the bubble for a chance to win the cup. I think I've said that. Now that we're out, though, it's great to be home, have your home life back together. So I don't have a lot for you there other than, spend some time at home, decompress, and get your work in on the days that, it's time to work. And because I can't help but think about next year, we don't want to lose this way. Don't want to go out this way. Feel like, we had the team to keep playing. So we got to figure out what to do to be in that position. So that's where I'm at right now.
And as far as nuts and bolts, some of this probably spans Donnie's world and then your world, but are all your assistants under contract to return? Do they all want to return? And would you envision any change in that core group of assistants?
No, everyone's under contract. As I said earlier, we try to every summer, Kevin, tweak a little bit of assignments so guys don't get stale. We'll have discussions. Obviously, Kevin's at one end of the bench, Jay and Joe at the other, but a little bit on what side of the puck are they going to emphasize, which players would they be more, comfortable, not comfortable with, but who have they built relationships with. So sometimes they'll sort of interact with those guys a little more, tutor them a little more, deal with the one-on-one video a little more. So we're going to have those discussions. As I said earlier, I need to get more involved with the D. It's where my roots are in terms of the offensive side of things. I think there's more to give there. So that will be an adjustment. Is it time to hand over the power play to Jay? He's been involved in it for 2 years and like I said, work on another area. So we're going to have those discussions on some changes. They'll have their opinion on it. I don't know if they will be looking for their assistants, if they're looking at a head jobs elsewhere, Kevin, yet. I'm not aware of that. They may want to do that. I mean, there's always reflection in the summer for assistant coaches, a time to try to run my own team. Are they content here in their role, which I believe they are, but they may want growth. So we'll have that conversation too. And then, I'll sit down with Donnie. He may think differently. He may have an opinion on that. Well, I think this is the way to go. And then we'll hash that out. But no, I think, our assistants do a terrific job. But like every year, we have to stay fresh and do what's best for the team. And if it means changing a few roles, we're absolutely amenable to that.
Thanks, Dupes. Take us home, Emily.
sorry to add one more to your queue, but
Okay.
another sort of nuts and bolts question. Just injuries. Is there anything you can tell us about what guys were dealing with through this?
I assume the team, Emily, will put out a list at some point. They usually do, because guys did quick medicals after the game at about 1 o'clock in the morning because our Doc Finn was there. Some of them were going different directions. So I know that, Pasta had a lower body injury, played through the whole playoffs. You could see he wasn't at top speed. Obviously missing time, him and Kasha, their conditioning level wasn't where it needed to be. To stand the rigors of that. And that was a bit of circumstance. Typically you have the whole year to build that up. If you miss a bit at the start, we didn't have that luxury this year. We know Tuukka dealt with an injury at the start in his finger. I think he announced that. Richie had an injury late that, there's a couple guys, Corrali, lower body that weren't able to play. Wagner, that's a different animal. I don't want to speculate on his. Who's the other injuries? I know that Bergie and Marsh were getting treatments too. Some wear and tear that they've had over the years. Certainly able to play. No, not making an excuse there, but I don't know if there's going to be any surgeries. I know Z's foot the last game he took a block shot that I know that there was an X-ray situation. So whether there's anything further on that, I have not heard yet. Charlie's good. He got hit into the boards there, but he came back, so he's fine. I believe that's it in terms of, I'm going through them in my head. I don't believe there's any other injuries that would cause any concern or long length of time.